how do I start? Just start, right? Just start. So Hammy, the name of the dog, he's friendly and he's always present in every of our videos. So I guess it's the week of vulnerability for me, and being vulnerable really is where I'm at. So I've been going through one of the roughest patch of life that I have ever had personally. My roughest patch of life, last 3 months of my life. And actually during that period I actually got a diary especially just for that last 3 months. If you can see it, it says the last 3 months of my life, or my first 3 months of living. That's how bad I've been feeling. That's how bad I've been feeling in the last 3 months. I've been feeling awful, and I'm actually surprised I'm still here, because that last 3 months was supposed to end yesterday, the 31st of January, but I am a coward, so I guess my cowardice has saved my life one more day, right? Saved my life one more day. I had it marked in my calendar and it was like 31st of January. I'm done. I'm out. But I'm still here. And actually yesterday, the 31st, I actually made something. It was actually the first time I actually made my clay art. So instead of dying, I actually created something. I'm actually really proud of this creation, I must say. It's my first attempt at clay art. I've always wanted to dabble into clay art, and this is my first attempt at it, and I love it. It actually turned out beautifully. Not quite what I was thinking in my head, but actually maybe better, maybe better and unique. So I don't know if any of you have ever really been in a really terrible slump, and one thing you would probably notice is the lack of that motivation, or just inability to really do anything. You're just lying down and you just cut yourself off from the world in a way. You just closing that chapter of your life, and my curtains would just stay closed, and they are practically blackout curtains. So I was in my room just like almost 3 days, barely eating, barely doing anything, and I was just like lying down on the bed, like in the dark all day. It was crazy. I got a diary so I could write out how I felt during that last 3 months of my life, or hopefully now the first 3 months of living. And during that period, I could barely even write in my diary. Okay, I could barely even write in my diary. I was like, I want to write. Just hanging. It was that bad, So thankfully I was able to get out of it, because I felt like I was practically mummifying, during that period. I felt like I was practically mummifying in my own body, like the story of the monks, the Buddhas of Mount Udono. And I read about it, and I'm actually gonna put like a really fun read about it for you guys down below. It's like really fun actually. And it spoke about these monks who would mummify themselves while alive, and they'll just end it, It's crazy. And I felt like that was what was happening to me the last 3 months, and part of that story is they would eat tree barks, nuts, and they reduce or cut back on their meals, over the period of time during which they want to mummify themselves, and then end their entire meditation and life as well. So I practically felt that way, because I was barely even eating nuts. I was barely even eating nuts. I was just like, I don't wanna, and I don't want to be a hungry ghost, you see. I don't want to die hungry. So I guess that was one of the things that actually made me stand up, and I was like, I'm not trying to be a hungry ghost. I don't want to. Okay, even if I were to be a ghost, there are two types of ghosts that movies have made us know we don't want to be. Okay, the virgin ghost and the hungry ghost. I don't want to be either. But yeah, I remember getting up and I was like, okay, maybe I should eat. Maybe I should eat. Yeah, let's see if that gives us strength to do something. I was totally mummifying myself. And part of that story about the Buddhas of the Mount Udono is that they are able to actually grant wishes, answer prayers. So I was like, maybe if I mummify myself enough, I will be able to grant wishes too. I don't think so. No, mine is probably gonna end in like gore, and blood everywhere. So more like a haunted house. And I would hate to leave that for my landlord to have to deal with. That would be a disaster. That would be terrible. So I'm gonna try to spare the guy, right? I'm gonna try to spare the guy. And so during yesterday I was able to get up and I was like, hey, I wanna try doing something, So I remember thinking, hey, I already have a website, right? In case you don't know what it is, it's hobvis.com, HOBVIS.com. So it's a place I created, and it's a place that I got the idea for it during my university years. And I remember thinking, hey, I want to be able to make extra cash doing things I love, like my hobbies, my pastimes. So I was able to make that site. So I remember thinking, hey, I already have hobbies. Why don't I get up and get into creating a hobby, right? One hobby I've always wanted to dabble into is art, like clay art, crafts, stuff like that, carving. So I already got some clay like 4 months ago, but I was just in a very terrible slump to literally do anything, to use it, to create, to make anything, So I remember I was like, hey, I already got some clay. Why don't I just get up and, use it to make something, right? And put it on Hobvis, right? I already have this website. What am I even doing? So I remember getting up, and yesterday I was like, hey, let's try to tweak something here and there. Let's get into art. And I did get into some like really depressive arts as well, and distorted art, because I was like, I was so anxious. I just took a pen and I was like, just to feel like I was doing something, and little by little, like right there, I believe my body finally like got up a little bit, and I said okay. And then that was how I got into my art, the clay art. And for this one, I actually used what they call modelina. I believe that's the Spanish name, though. It probably like something else in English, but it's like a moldable, but it's not exactly clay, so it doesn't really dry as hard as clay. No, it's actually pretty, moldable. But I did use paint on it, so that way it's a lot more firm. So I actually used that, and I was like, hey, why don't I do have actual clay, but I was like, this is my first time creating anything, so let me use modelina, just in case. I can always just tweak it and try to recreate. And that was how I got to work and finally got out of that slump, I was feeling for the last 3 months, because I tell you, it was crazy. You know how people always say, hey, that person just yesterday they looked very happy, they look good, like how is it that today they're gone? That was what was happening to me. And when you see me, you can tell that I'm expressing myself differently from how I feel. Because if I'm telling you, hey, I felt like I was in a slump, and today I'm able to have this, this defense mechanism that is a smile, definitely I was in a very bad state, and I had my smile, but that's literally something I've seen and I've come across, and people are like, hey, but she was okay just yesterday. Yeah, it happens literally. So I had to get out of there. So just in case for you, this is also a time when you're feeling vulnerable and down, it's actually something my therapist taught me when I went, when I was speaking to her and I was like, hey, I'm feeling really bad. I don't even want to continue anymore. I'm just so tired. And I remember the one question she asked me that stuck with me was, what are you doing about it? And I remember thinking, oh, that's a good question. I was like, what am I doing about it? And I remember that period I was still building Hobvis, so I was like, hey, I'm building my website, right? I feel down, but I'm building things, and that's that's a way for me to heal. And she was like, oh, that's beautiful, and I remember thinking that I'm someone who loves to create, to make things, so it's pretty cool to make things or craft them with my hands. So that was, and she gave me a few other, examples like, hey, meditation, exercise, writing in a diary, which was why I actually bought my diary. It was because she was like, hey, write it, write it out, write out how you feel, read books. And I actually wrote it down, and she was like, paint, draw, create things. And she actually asked me to list the things that I could do to better my state of mind. And for me, that was like learning a new hobby, because I love hobbies, right? Hence the whole website Hobvis. So I love hobbies and pastimes and just doing things that allow me to be free, hence it being my last 3 months of life or my first 3 months of living, feeling like I'm alive, and I was like, okay, I want to learn a new hobby, stuff like that. So if this is how you feel, if you're really in one of those slumps of life, like slump, and you feel really down, try something new, right? Try something new, or you make a list of, hey, what are the things you may need to try that could help your life. And she told me this. I got the diary and I actually wrote it, a lot of things down, but I didn't even get to them for a long time. So don't think, hey, you and I already know it's not gonna happen immediately. You're not gonna say, hey, I'm in a really bad state and I just wrote down that I need to meditate and now I'm here. I'm out. Like, whew, I'm meditating and I feel so good. No, it's not gonna happen overnight. It did not, at least for me, it did not happen overnight.